It's RacerX and welcome back. Today I want to do a little video about something that's been on my mind for a little while. Actually, I want to talk a little bit about Dodge and I want to kind of give you 5 things, at least in my opinion, that I feel like Dodge could do moving into 2020 and really to kind of, the next decade. That I feel like is going to make a huge difference in the success of the brand and some of the things I think they need to focus on kind of to move the brand forward and continue to be one of the major players in the American sport or muscle car segments. So guys, I can't wait to bring that to you. Also, if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button down on the bottom and we're off. So for those of you that regularly follow my channel, you know that I've got a Charger Hellcat that makes right around 1,000 horsepower. I also have this car, which is a 2019 Challenger Scat Pack. I absolutely love them both. So before I go into any detail, I do want to mention I am a huge advocate for Dodge. I am a big fan of their products. I think they make fantastic cars. And I have an absolute blast with R2 Mopars, and I will continue to probably be a Dodge fan for quite some time. I am also a sports car enthusiast through and through. I do appreciate many of the manufacturers and the different things that they do, the different levels and trims of all these other sports cars out there. Guys, I am a true sports car enthusiast. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm only a Mopar guy or I'm only a Chevy guy or Ford, whatever. But I can appreciate where I feel like we've got some room for improvement from a Dodge perspective. So I want to bring you a couple of those things. I feel like these are things that Dodge definitely needs to address. So the number one thing on my list, it's an issue that most people know about, it's weight, guys. So here's the thing. When you look at comparable trim levels on the different, the sports cars that are out there, the muscle cars, pony, whatever you want to call them, you've kind of got some, at least when you talk about the American cars, you have some cars that kind of fit into a certain niche, right? You've got like the Camaro SS, the Mustang. You guys have seen me do videos on comparisons with those. But guys, I did some research on this, and it's no secret that Mopars are heavy. It is what it is. They're much heavier. It's just the way the platform is. They're bigger cars. But at the end of the day, guys, here's the thing. A Mustang, I just looked this up. It weighs 36, okay, so it's basically 3,700 pounds. A Camaro SS, basic trim, same trim, 3,700 pounds. Both cars, essentially the same weight. And then you have the Challenger Scat Pack. Okay, guys, this car, 4,232. So you're talking over 500 pounds difference for cars that kind of compete for the same sort of market segment. Now, I will tell you, the Hemi motor is fantastic. I absolutely love the Hemi, and I love the way that it puts out torque. But guys, Dodge, you have to figure out a way to cut some weight out of the car to remain competitive moving, into the future. And because a lot of the people that buy these cars, these 392s, and especially the Hellcats and stuff like that, guys, we track these cars, and these are performance-oriented vehicles, and we are so much heavier than the competition. So there are a couple of ways that we can do that. I want to talk about one of them in my next point. I don't know if we need to go through and rework the chassis. I think that maybe we need to revise some materials. But guys, we have to get these cars under 4,000 pounds at least. I realize that the motor makes a lot of torque and we combat the weight with power. But just imagine how dominant we would be, I say we as in Dodge would be, if we could pull 500 pounds of weight out. There is no way that the competition, regardless of what's going on, there's no way that the competition would be able to keep up with a car that makes the kind of torque that these Hemis do, that's equal weight. And so that's the problem we always do. Now guys, I know it's expensive to try and go in and revise chassis and do things like that, but at this juncture, after all these years of just being heavy and being called Fat Pig, In order to achieve success moving forward, we've got to lighten the cars up, and we need to do some drastic things to make these cars competitive from a weight perspective. And so this bleeds into my second point. We need a revised motor for these cars. I'm driving a 392. This motor has been around for quite some time. And what I mean by that is it's a fantastic, the Hemi motor is fantastic, this 392 is fantastic. Dodge really set the bar when they went to the Hellcat motor, even though it's heavy. But guys, from a block perspective, we're still working with an iron block that weighs an absolute ton. Yes, I know they're very strong, but when you're competing against cars that have these aluminum blocks, you're basically weighing the car down. And I know that they can make these aluminum blocks really strong. And you know, I realize that, like I said, there's some upfront cost to this, but it will do two things. You can revise the motor, and you can cut weight at the same time. And the 392 motor, even though it does have aluminum heads, it is a very heavy motor. And at the end of the day, the motor, we need a new option on the motor. It's run its course. I don't know what else to say about it, guys. It's a fantastic thing. I think we can build upon what we've already done in terms of what the 392 can do from a torque perspective, but we need a lighter motor. And you know what, guys? It wouldn't hurt to have a motor that is a little bit more robust, because at the end of the day, if you try and apply boost to a 392, we're not talking about a Hellcat, but say like a 392, they just really don't put up with a whole lot of boost the same way, say, like a Coyote would. Those engines are very robust, and they put up with a lot. It's just a difference in the way the motors are made and the components. But I would absolutely love to see Dodge do some sort of revision to make the internals a little bit stronger and the motor lighter, or perhaps even give us a brand new addition. And we're not talking about a Hellefant here, guys, because the Hellefant, as you know, you can't just stuff that in a modern day car and run. It will not pass emissions, and it's not really what that motor is made for unless you only track it. So guys, I would love to see Dodge do something different with the motor, whether it's a brand new motor or just refresh the new motor and make it fun and interesting. You see what obviously what Ford is doing. They've got that flat plane V8, which I think is fantastic. And then of course, you know, we've got some new stuff from Chevy, which I'll talk about. My next point, point 3, Dodge needs a new halo car. Yes, we have the muscle car segment kind of down. I mean, we've got the Challenger, we've got the Charger, and we've had that for a long time. Dodge needs a new halo car. The Viper went away. We know that they didn't enjoy the best sales out there. The Vipers were very expensive cars. But I mean, when you look at somebody like a Ford who's got this halo, they've got the Ford GT out there. Now, of course, they're coming out with the brand new Shelby GT500, which looks like a pretty interesting car. And then you look at what Chevy is doing with the brand new mid-engine Corvette. There's a ton of buzz around that car, and that looks very exciting. So all the manufacturers are really stepping up the bar in terms of putting these halo cars out there. When they come out with a mid-engine Corvette that's a Z06 variant, I have a feeling it's going to be very, very nasty. But you know, Dodge needs something like that again. And to be quite honest with you, whether it comes out in the form of a CUDA, we don't know. You know, but we continue to put out these, you know, the red eye and these different variants, but it's on the same platform. And the platform has aged. So really what needs to happen is we need to come out with something new and different, or bring back something, say, like the Viper. I actually talked to a good buddy of mine, B. Mason, who's got a fantastic YouTube channel. If you get a chance, check him out. But very, very intelligent guy, works very closely with a lot of different people, and has the inside scoop on a lot of things. And you know what? If they brought back a Viper that had sort of a naturally aspirated, something to compete with the Corvette, like I'm not talking about Z06 and all that kind of stuff, but if they could come out with like a naturally aspirated aluminum 426, or even take the 392 and make it aluminum, put a 309 gear behind it, and somehow market that car at the same price point that you market a Corvette for, there would be a massive market for that car. I promise you there would be, because, you know, everybody, I like Vettes. I've had several Corvettes. I've had 4 of them. They're fantastic cars. But I would love to see Dodge do something at a price point that, you know, that's affordable for a lot more people. And that's really the big thing, is that if they could come out with a $65,000 Viper that's naturally aspirated, that made 520 or 530 horsepower, and made it in an automatic, a really nice, stout automatic, I think they would sell it by the boatload, especially if it was a little easier to get in and out of and make a few tweaks. And if we could pull the female segment into it, because guys, if we do the automatic and you make it appealing, I think you'll have a lot more women drivers that are going to want to drive something like that as well, which would be really good for the brand, because Dodge is dominated by guys. It's a true fact. It's well known, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but if you want to expand the brand and expand your market share, you've got to pull that in. It doesn't mean you can't have a variant later that is the bad daddy, some 900 horsepower elephant variant Viper that just eats things for dinner. And I think that would be fantastic. But you got to come out with something that competes with a 2-trim Corvette or a 3-trim Corvette, whatever it is, in that price point, that 60 to 70 range that people can go in. I'm talking sticker, and something that compete with that group. And I think that Dodge would do a fantastic job and open up a whole new world for potential new buyers. So point 4, Dodge really needs to do something for aftermarket. And what I mean by that is, like, from a gearing perspective, it would be great if Dodge gave us a couple of different variants from the factory for gearing. I feel like if they really listen to kind of what their consumers, their customers are saying, a lot of the folks like to go out there and they like to either drag race or road race, whatever it is. And if Dodge could somehow offer different gearing options, I think that would be great. And the other thing is, all these other manufacturers are going to 10-speed transmissions, and that's partly like Mustang. That's why they pull so hard on the top end, is because they've got that fantastic 10-speed transmission. Camaros now have the 10-speed transmission, and it's starting to become kind of a standard thing. And it's not that the 8-speed from Dodge is bad; it's actually quite good. But I think if we could somehow rein it in and come up with a transmission that's similar to like what's in the 10 speeds, to just give it that little bit of extra, I feel like that would be a huge step in the right direction. Now, whether in terms of application, obviously you can use it on your 392s, your Chargers, your Challengers, and maybe even put it in one of the new cars. Who knows? Whatever they decide to come up with. Guys, we got to get a revision on the transmission. Yes, the 8-speed is great, but the new 10 speeds are tough to compete with at the drag strip, from roll racing, all that kind of stuff. Let's get a revision on the transmission and maybe give us some more rear gear options, and even other aftermarket parts such as drive shafts, half shafts. There are a multitude of other things that we could do for the performance enthusiasts out there, to make it a little bit more user friendly. And the last thing I want to touch on, point 5, is I think we're kind of missing the boat. I keep saying I mean Dodge. We're missing the boat a little bit on the 4-cylinder market. Yes, I realize everybody loves a good V8, but guess what? Ford has like these little Focus STs, and they've got these like hot hatch segment, and we used to have that in the SRT4, and I feel like there's a whole market segment that Dodge is missing by not having that car. And I feel like they need to have a little offering, to compete with the Evos of the world, or the Subaru, the WRXs, the Focus STs. And there's a huge market segment out there, and Dodge is completely missing it. And there are a lot of young people, especially because Dodge has established themselves as kind of that young, that performance-oriented brand. And they've worked really hard to do it. Dodge does a fantastic job of marketing, so I need to give them credit for that. Dodge's marketing team is on point. I absolutely love the stuff they did on the Demon. Obviously, when they marketed the Hellcat, I think they did a fantastic job with that as well. But at the end of the day, we need to get a little like hot hatch or a little 4-door out there, a small car with like a little turbo on it or something like that, like they used to have, to kind of pull in some of the younger group that can't necessarily afford an SRT car, a Scat Pack car, Hellcat, whatever it may be, but still wants to stay in that performance-oriented group. If we could come up with something like that, a revised version, something that puts out 300 horse or 320 horse, that's a fantastic little car to drive, a lot of fun. I think that Dodge can really expand their brand, and I think at the end of the day, if Dodge can continue to grow and express themselves and make sure that they are establishing themselves as that really fun, unique brand that just does not care, and that's what I love about them, I think they'll have success for many, many years to come. So where does that leave us? Well, Dodge has worked very hard. Like I said, we came out with the Hellcat, and they basically blew everybody out of the water. Here comes this sedan, and here comes this muscle car that makes over 700 horsepower, can get into the 10s from the factory, and you know, Dodge just put the bar way up. And then of course they came out with the Demon, even though it wasn't necessarily marketed the way I would like to have seen it. I feel like maybe they had a misstep there. But at the end of the day, it's still a very, very cool car. And from a marketing perspective, Dodge is doing great. But we need to see some of these changes moving forward into 2020 and perhaps the next couple of years that are going to keep the brand fresh, that are going to ensure its success moving forward, and to keep buyers, both new buyers and existing Mopar people, kind of interested in the brand. And I just want to kind of reiterate, these are all just my opinions. I just want to kind of put them out there, what I feel like Dodge can do, because I am a vested Mopar owner. I want to see Mopar continue to have success, FCA, whatever you want to call them. At the end of the day, they do make a fun car. I would love to see them get even better, because the competition is coming out with some really, really neat stuff, and Mopar needs to continue to push that bar higher and make new and unique things, and continue to bring on, you know, new market share, and you know, continue to just expand. So that's my 2 cents, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Had a lot of fun with it. Until next time, RacerX.